Good afternoon, and welcome to Morning Gospel Fuel with Mr. G. Evidently, you have to get used to that. Morning, afternoon, or night, or evening. It might not be that, but it's still going to be called Morning Gospel Fuel, I think I decided. Anyway, it is Friday, September 25th, the Feast Day of Saints Cosmas and Damian. And from my understanding, they were twin brothers in the 3rd century, and they were physicians who did all of their doctor duties and healings and practice for free. And then they ended up getting killed for it. They're martyrs. That's why they're saints. But anyway, today's gospel is from Luke chapter 9, verses 18 through 22. Let's begin in the name of the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. Amen. Once when Jesus was praying in solitude, and the disciples were with him, he asked them, Who do the crowd say that I am? They said in reply, John the Baptist, others Elijah, still others, one of the ancient prophets has arisen. Then he said to them, But who do you say that I am? Peter said in reply, The Messiah of God. He rebuked them and directed them not to tell this to anyone. He said, The Son of Man must suffer greatly and be rejected by the elders and the chief priests and the scribes and be killed, and on the 3rd day be raised. So that is today's gospel. It sounds very similar to yesterday's gospel if you watched or listened to that or read it on your own. But Herod was talking about what other people were saying Jesus was, and virtually said the exact same thing. If you look at yesterday's scripture in verse 7 compared to now, beginning with verse 18, it's the same people, comparing Jesus to being either Elijah or John the Baptist or the other ancient prophets from the Old Testament like Jeremiah and whoever else. But either way, Jesus gets to asking Peter, saying, I hear what they're saying, but who do you say that I am? And that's all that Jesus is really concerned with. But if you notice at the beginning of this scripture, it says that it began, the very first line, once when Jesus was praying in solitude. Now they could leave that out. They don't have to say that. But it says, once when Jesus was praying in solitude and the disciples were with him, he asked them, why? So Luke paints the picture and just he feels it necessary to tell us that Jesus was praying. And there's a footnote in my Bible that refers me back to, tells me to go to Luke chapter 3, verse 21. So I went back and did some research and saw that. And it says, and I quote, Luke regularly presents, so Luke the evangelist who wrote this gospel, regularly presents Jesus at prayer at important points in his ministry, such as at his baptism, at the choice of the 12, before Peter's confession, at the transfiguration, whenever he teaches his disciples to pray with the Our Father, at the Last Supper, on the Mount of Olives, on the cross. You get the picture. All major events. They're talking about Jesus began it with prayer. That's what happened today in Luke's gospel. And then he ends it with major news. The major news that Jesus is going to be handed over to die on the cross. However, he's going to rise on the 3rd day. But notice also within there, he tells them and directs them not to tell anybody. So we're going to put that all together and try to get a challenge out of that, because whenever, like I just said, whenever Jesus is asking Peter, I care about what you think. We can think of that for us too, not just Peter in Scripture. Jesus wants to know what we think and what we believe as him to be. So the challenge, and we can only really figure that out through prayer, because, as I mentioned already, the importance of Jesus praying during moments in Scripture. So that's going to be the challenge for us, because we can't recognize all the good thing that Jesus does for us in our lives unless we take the time to pray and build our relationship with him. So that's the challenge. Pray today, pray tomorrow, pray the next day, maybe even multiple times a day, and do it in silence. And there's no need to tell anybody, just like Jesus directs his disciples to, because you shouldn't need to tell people that you pray. They should simply notice that something special is going on with you, because by your demeanor, by your conversations, by the actions that you do, and just how you live your life. So Maybe not right away, they won't notice because people usually don't notice that type of stuff instantaneously. But over time, they'll say, something's different about him or something's different about her. So that's the challenge. Go pray and see what happens. See what God can do. Happy praying, and God bless. In the name of the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit, amen.